What's up, YouTube? So today's topic, I'm going to talk about the reasons why most people settle for less in life, and the reasons why people will forever be miserable and have a lot of regrets in their life when it comes to their career, when it comes to their romantic life, when it comes to their friendship circle, and when it comes to their finances, etc. So let's get to it. So the main reasons why a lot of people will have a lot of regrets in life, or most people have regrets in life, or they're not happy, is because one, they settle a lot in life. Now, I see this happen a lot, especially with connections with romantic relationships. So, a lot of women who are very younger in their age, I see a lot of women, they tend to get married or have kids or or have or be in a long-term relationship usually when they're in their early 20s, but very young. And I get it, because the reason why most women are more prone to marrying early is because basically because of their fucking eggs or something. I forgot how it works, but they have eggs and stuff and like that, and they need to be like fertilized or something. And as they get older, their eggs are gonna die off and stuff like that, or their fertilization is gonna die off as they get older. So basically when you're in like in their 30s or 40s, it's gonna be harder for women to have kids pretty much, and they're going to look less more attractive because of their wrinkles, because of older age, and they're not going to be as desirable as when they were younger, when they have fresh eggs and stuff like that, when they're more fertilized and shit like that. So I get it, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how, like, I've seen women, they tend to go for connections with guys that they're really not that into, even if it's like temporary connections. But I always see a woman, they always have a boyfriend. They're either married, have kids by the wrong person that they're not even into, or they're in a romantic relationship. It's very rare to see a woman who is very single, the average woman who's very single. And the reason why they do that is because a lot of women, they lack confidence, and they're always chasing validation. This is why they dress a certain way. This is why they do certain things, because they're looking for validation. Because a lot of women growing up, they were spoiled. They never knew what it's like to love themselves. They don't know what it's like to go after for their dreams, for their goals. Because naturally, women are they are followers. This is why men rule the world, and men are going to stay to rule the world. A lot of men invent things, they create things. They're the backbone of this world. Women aren't really like that. Usually what most women do is that they have kids, which wouldn't happen if it wasn't for a man. But most women, they have kids, they know how to raise kids. I mean, I want to say they know how to raise kids, but because it takes two to raise kids. But basically, women, they're nurturers. They are meant to give love and give nurturing energy, and to be nice and feminine. That's the only what women do pretty much. So naturally, women, they tend to be raised growing up as in being praised, having a lot of like entitlement as they grow older. And because of societal programming, a program is meant to do all the work, while the women to not do half of the work. This is why most women, they're very lazy. They have less ambition. They don't have any hobbies or goals when it comes to their life. The only thing they can offer is their body. And this is why most American women are very stuck up. This is why a lot of men have issues dealing with most women. So because most women have that mindset, um, because they don't know what it's like to be independent, and they don't know what it's like to genuinely love themselves, they're gonna fall for they are going to settle for guys that they're not really into. This is why most women are even more prone to cheating, because they settle for guys that they're not into. It's either that, or because they have low self-esteem, they're gonna chase validation from guy to guy every time they get to a connection. This is why most women are more prone to cheating. So because women weren't taught the basic needs on how to love themselves, how to give themselves self-respect, how to go after for their dreams and goals, on how to be dependent and how to think for themselves. Women were not taught that growing up, because a lot of society and men don't know how to treat women. So because of that, a lot of women, they settle for connections that they're not that into. They're not happy in relationships. They're not excelling when it comes to their career, when it comes to their hobbies. Most women do the same shit. Most women either they barely go to the gym, they always work on their makeup, and they go in groups and gossip. That's pretty much what most women do. You don't see women who are inventors, who are creators, who lead and stuff like that. Usually men do that. So, and I get it because both genders they operate differently. They have different purposes in life, but still though, like most men tend to be more independent. They tend to go through more life obstacles. They tend to be more isolated, and they tend to work harder than the average woman because society caters to most women. And that leads to most women disrespecting men because of societal programming. People call it feminism, the gender wars, and shit like that. But that's basically why most women tend to settle when it comes to their connections, and why they tend to settle when they're younger. So, but also when it comes to male and females, most of them, they don't like to go outside the norm. So they tend to settle for connections, for anything in life when it comes to finances and stuff like that, because most men and women, they're too afraid to grab life by the balls and to go after for what they want, because growing up they had a silver spoon in their mouth, meaning they grew up with a lot of shit that they didn't really have to work for. But not only that, but they really weren't taught the necessary things on how they need to go about life. Most people don't have that inner fire for them to go after life and to fight for what they believe in, to go for their passions. Most people are followers. Most people have life handed to them. And just because I say most people have life handed to them, I'm not saying they have like they weren't born rich or anything like that. You could be born in the middle class, you could be born into poverty, and you could still not have any type of fire in you to work hard in life, to go after your dreams. You don't have any balls as a person to go after for what you want. You can still be spoiled despite how much money you make. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. It's the mindset. And part of it is because they didn't have parents teaching them on how to be great in life, or they had lesser experiences that forced them to be great in life. So if you go through a lot of betrayal, if you go through a lot of heartbreak, if you observe life from a very deep scale, these main things is really gonna help motivate you to become great in life. Basically pain. But it doesn't have to be pain. It can also be if you see certain things in life that you don't like, that's gonna give you enough motivation for you to go after, to become great, to fight for what you believe in. But even then, that holds people back because, like I said, people lack courage. They lack the balls to go after life. Why is that? It's because they were raised around people, basically. Because if you have certain people constantly raised around groups, around a social circle, if they go to school and growing up they're always chasing validation and they're sticking with that circle, if they're too afraid to separate from that group, from that pack, they're not going to be able to think for themselves. They're not going to be able to think outside the norm. This is why when you go out, a lot of people don't go outside by themselves. You see people go out in groups of like friends, whether it be one person or multiple people. They always got to ask for validation for them to do certain things. This is why when they want to go out, they always want to message their friends if they want to go out with them. If you see people go out on bars and clubs, they always drink alcohol just so they can fit in the norm. This is why you always see women, they always go in packs and groups because they can't think for themselves. They got to always ask for validation. A lot of people are not comfortable with exploring and navigating life by themselves. When it comes to their apartment, when it comes to their housing, when it comes to their car, when it comes to their money, when it comes to their life plan, all that's handed to them by family members. They don't know what it's like to actually think for themselves. They don't know what it's like to hit rock bottom. They don't know what it's like to find solutions on how to better themselves without the family emotional support. A lot of people are born into situations where they have shit handed to them emotionally. It could be financially. It could be with people in general. God or the universe never really put them in a situation where people have to really fight for their lives, pretty much. And that's why a lot of people tend to settle for mediocre shit. This is why a lot of people are not happy with their lives. They could put on a fake facade or act like they're happy with their life, but deep down they're not. They're just followers. People call them sheep. They're nothing but sheep. They're nothing but like most people. They're average people. They don't know what it's like to be above average. They don't know what it's like to be uncomfortable in order for them to become great in life, to have that inner fire, to fight for what you believe in, to become the best version of yourself, financially, physically, spiritually, emotionally, etc. You know, but that could also apply to healing work. So when you see a lot of people who are very emotionally unavailable, or people who like empathy, or people who aren't good people to talk to, is because they're too much of a pussy, too much of a coward to really face themselves, to heal themselves, to become a better version of themselves, to grow out of their comfort zone. This is why when you see people many years, like you've known them for many years, and they're still doing the same shit, they're still not making money, they're still not emotionally intelligent, they still lack wisdom, they still act and talk and do the same shit. They're not improving nothing in their life, nothing. And that's dangerous. So basically, the reason why most people are average, most people don't want to change, most people don't want to heal, is because of their upbringing. It's because they never had that stick up their ass for them to change, whether it be through life, God, the universe, people in general. That's the reasons why. Basically, people were babied throughout their whole life. That's why they're not willing to change, and that's why they settle for mediocre shit when it comes to their connections, when it comes to their finances, when it comes to their dating, when it comes to their on how they move, when it comes to their trauma. This is why you see a lot of people who have a lot of trauma, and you meet them years down the road and they're still doing the same shit. They're still chasing validation. They're still doing people wrong. They still don't have that emotional intelligence. They're still not taking accountability. They're still doing the same shit. And I know grown people like this. A lot of people are like this because they don't have the strength or courage or balls to face life and to face life head on, for them to change, to become better versions of themselves. Because they were babied, they were handed with shit throughout their whole lives. People never, like, they were never put in situations where they hit rock bottom. They never experienced a lot of people betraying and backstabbing them to where they got no one but themselves. They don't know what they never experienced of like having to be in a close situation with God, to have no choice but to rely on God. People were never put into these situations. You know, so that's the reason why most people won't change. And that's dangerous, because when that happens, then these people or you will tend to settle for things that won't make you happy like that. It'll make you content, but it won't make you happy. You know, so and as people get older, they're gonna have a lot of regrets and stuff like. I've seen this a lot of things. This is why when you see people, when they get into connections, when they get into marriages, or even when it comes to work, it could be anything in life. They get those things based on people who they grew up with, based on going to the same school as these people, working the same job as these people, same occupation with these people. It's all in their comfort zone. They don't do shit that's out of their comfort zone. So, for example, when it comes to relationships, right? Most people who get married or find their boyfriend or girlfriend is because they knew this person because they work at the same job, or because they're both classmates, they both go to the same school, they both go to the same classroom, or because they both follow each other on social media, or because they know a friend that knows this person. That's the main reasons. That's most people marry people based on these circumstances. Barely anyone has the actual balls of courage to say, fuck that, I'm gonna find someone that I'm genuinely into and that we have a strong connection, not just someone I'm going to settle with. So now how do you get that? You're gonna have to go outside, and you're going to have to approach strangers that you don't know like that you never heard from, that you don't know who the fuck they are, but because you find that attraction with them, you find them attractive, you're going to have the balls to approach them and talk to that person and to figure out there's a connection. And it may mean you getting rejected 1,000 times. It may mean you having to wait for 20 more years. But it may mean for you to get off your comfort zone and to change your financial situation, to change your life situation, to change your housing situation, to change your mindset, to do the healing work and stuff like that, to change your emotional intelligence to improve your social skills, all of that. That's what it takes. But most people are not willing to go there because they're too much of a pussy to go through that, pretty much. And then they settle for mediocre connections. Now, apply that to connections, but people also do the same shit when it comes to their job, when it comes to their money, when it comes to their mental health, when it comes to anything in life, pretty much. This is why most people are the same. Most people are not unique. Most people do not stand out. It's because most people are doing the same shit because it's comfortable. That's only what they know. So that's all I got to say. Have a good one. Peace.